What if the true story behind one of Scotland's greatest heroes isn't what you think? Prepare to dive into the gritty, raw, and undeniably fascinating life of William Wallace, the man behind the legend of Braveheart. By watching until the end, you'll uncover the real history behind the Scottish Wars of Independence, learn about Wallace's strategic brilliance, and discover the brutal reality of medieval warfare. Ever wondered how a seemingly ordinary man could ignite a revolution? Stay with us, and you'll see how Wallace's legacy continues to inspire and shape Scotland to this day. Brutal beginning, murder, and revolution. In the turbulent month of May 1297, the quiet town of Lanark in Scotland became the unlikely epicenter of a revolution. William Wallace, a relatively unknown figure at the time, committed an act that would forever alter the course of Scottish history. Driven by a fierce sense of justice and defiance, Wallace brutally murdered the sheriff of Lanark, an English official named William Heselrigg. This act was more than just a violent outburst. It was a calculated strike against the oppressive English rule that had suffocated Scotland for years. The murder of Heselrigg was the spark that ignited the Scottish Wars of Independence, setting Wallace on a path to becoming a national icon. The reasons behind Wallace's drastic action were deeply rooted in the harsh realities faced by the Scottish people under English domination. Edward IV of England, often referred to as Longshanks, was determined to bring Scotland to heel. His policies were ruthless, involving heavy taxation, land confiscation, and brutal enforcement of English laws. The Scottish nobility was coerced into submission, while the common folk bore the brunt of the oppression. Wallace's attack on Heselrigg was a direct response to these injustices, a bold statement that enough was enough. The immediate aftermath of the sheriff's murder was chaos, but also a rallying cry. News of Wallace's daring act spread like wildfire, reaching the ears of Scots who had long harbored resentment against their English overlords. Wallace's boldness and willingness to confront the seemingly invincible English forces head-on inspired many. He was not a nobleman with armies at his command, but an ordinary man standing up for his countrymen. This narrative of the common man rising against tyranny resonated deeply, and soon, Wallace was no longer fighting alone. The town of Lanark quickly became a hotbed of rebellion. Wallace, now a fugitive, was joined by men from all walks of life who were eager to follow his lead. The Scottish resistance began to take shape, characterized by its guerrilla tactics and relentless spirit. Wallace's ability to unite these disparate groups under a common cause was a testament to his leadership and charisma. His defiance in the face of overwhelming odds transformed him from an outlaw into a symbol of hope and resistance. Wallace's transformation was not just a personal journey, but a collective awakening for the Scottish people. His actions challenged the status quo and emboldened others to take up arms against the English. Each skirmish, each act of defiance, chipped away at the perception of English invincibility. Wallace's early victories were crucial in building momentum and convincing more Scots to join the cause. The brutal beginning marked by the sheriff's murder was just the start of a wider movement for Scottish independence. The murder of the sheriff of Lanark also highlighted the brutal realities of medieval warfare and rebellion. Wallace's tactics were uncompromising, reflecting the desperation and resolve of a people pushed to their limits. The medieval period was a time of harsh justice and violent retribution, and Wallace's actions were emblematic of the period's ruthless nature. His willingness to use violence as a means to an end was controversial but necessary in the context of his struggle. As we delve deeper into Wallace's story, it's important to remember that his actions, though brutal, were born out of a profound desire for justice and freedom. The murder of the sheriff was the catalyst that transformed Wallace from a relatively unknown figure into the leader of a national rebellion. It set the stage for the Scottish Wars of Independence and marked the beginning of Wallace's enduring legacy as a symbol of Scottish resistance. This brutal beginning was not just a moment of violence, but a powerful declaration of the Scottish spirit's indomitable will to fight for independence. Dispelling myths. Braveheart versus reality. It's easy to be captivated by the Hollywood portrayal of William Wallace in Braveheart. The image of a blue-faced Mel Gibson leading a ragtag army is iconic, yet far from accurate. The film, while entertaining, takes significant liberties with historical facts to enhance its dramatic appeal. In reality, Wallace was never a Highlander, and he didn't wear a kilt. These embellishments make for great cinema but skew the true essence of Wallace's struggle. The kilt, for example, did not become a staple of Scottish attire until centuries later. Wallace would have worn a much simpler form of dress, typical of the 13th century Scottish warriors. This video aims to peel back the layers of myth to reveal the true historical figure. The real William Wallace was a strategic mastermind and a charismatic leader whose tactics were rooted in the harsh realities of medieval warfare. Unlike the relatively small-scale skirmishes depicted in the film, Wallace's battles involved complex strategies and brutal hand-to-hand combat. Understanding the true story provides a richer, more nuanced appreciation of Wallace's impact on Scottish history. Wallace's military genius was evident in his use of guerrilla tactics, ambushes, and terrain advantages to overcome the better-equipped English forces. His victory at the Battle of Stirling Bridge, for instance, showcased his ability to use the environment to his advantage, a far cry from the simplistic battlefield scenes in Braveheart. Additionally, the real Wallace's motivations were deeply rooted in the socio-political context of his time. His rebellion was not just a spontaneous act of defiance, but a calculated response to the oppressive policies of Edward the Firter. Wallace sought to restore Scotland's independence and protect its people from English exploitation, a mission that required not just bravery, but also astute political maneuvering. Furthermore, Wallace's personal life, as depicted in the film, is largely fictionalized. The romantic subplot with Princess Isabella is purely a creation of Hollywood. Isabella of France was a child during Wallace's lifetime and did not marry Edward II until after Wallace's death. These creative liberties, while adding emotional depth to the film, detract from the historical accuracy of Wallace's story. By dispelling these myths, we can better understand the true character and legacy of William Wallace. His life was marked by resilience, strategic brilliance, and an unwavering commitment to his country's freedom. The real story of Wallace is one of a leader who rose from obscurity to challenge a mighty empire, driven by a profound sense of justice and national pride. As we continue to explore his life, we'll see that the true tale of William Wallace is far more compelling than any Hollywood rendition. His legacy as a national hero and symbol of resistance endures, not because of cinematic embellishments, but because of his genuine contributions to Scotland's fight for independence. Early life and rise from ordinary to icon. William Wallace was born around 1270, the second son of Sir Malcolm Wallace, a minor knight with modest means. The Wallace family lived in Elderslie, a village in Renfrewshire, Scotland. Unlike many of his contemporaries, Wallace received a basic education, learning Latin and the arts of chivalry, which was unusual for someone of his rank. This education, provided by monks, was crucial in shaping Wallace's intellectual and strategic capabilities. Growing up in a turbulent time, young Wallace would have been acutely aware of the tensions between Scotland and England. His education in Latin and chivalry would later aid him in unifying and leading the Scottish resistance. These skills were not only practical in combat, but also essential in communicating and negotiating with various factions within Scotland and abroad. Wallace's rise to prominence began not with grand ambitions, but with local skirmishes and a fierce dedication to his homeland. His early involvement in resistance efforts against the English was characterized by small-scale attacks on English outposts and officials, which demonstrated his leadership and strategic thinking. These actions, although minor at first, started to build his reputation as a formidable and committed leader. His deep-seated belief in Scottish independence set him apart from many of his contemporaries, who were often more concerned with personal power and wealth. Wallace's dedication to the cause of freedom was unwavering, and it was this passion that ultimately positioned him as a leader in the fight against English domination. Unlike the nobility, who were often divided and prone to switching allegiances, Wallace's loyalty to Scotland was absolute. The turning point in Wallace's early career came with his attack on Lanark in 1297, where he killed the Sheriff of Lanark, William Heselrigg. This act of defiance was a bold statement against English oppression and marked the beginning of his public rebellion. It was this incident that truly set Wallace on the path to becoming a national icon, as it resonated deeply with the oppressed Scottish population. Wallace's ability to inspire and lead was evident in the way he quickly gathered followers from various walks of life. His charisma and commitment to the cause attracted men who were willing to fight and die for Scottish independence. This growing support base enabled Wallace to organize more substantial and coordinated attacks against the English, further enhancing his reputation and influence. As Wallace's reputation grew, so did his responsibilities. He began to engage in larger military campaigns, demonstrating his tactical brilliance in battles such as the Battle of Stirling Bridge. Here, Wallace's knowledge of terrain and innovative tactics allowed a much smaller Scottish force to defeat a larger and better-equipped English army. This victory was a significant milestone in Wallace's rise to prominence, solidifying his status as a key figure in the struggle for Scottish independence. By understanding Wallace's early life and rise to prominence, we gain insight into the making of a national hero. His journey from the son of a minor knight to the leader of a revolutionary movement is a testament to his extraordinary character and leadership. Wallace's legacy as a symbol of Scottish resistance and independence was forged in these early years, laying the foundation for his enduring impact on Scottish history. Scottish turmoil, crisis and opportunity. Scotland in the late 13th century was a land in turmoil. The unexpected death of King Alexander III in 1286 plunged the nation into a crisis, as he left no direct heir to the throne. This power vacuum created uncertainty and chaos, making Scotland vulnerable to external threats. Edward I of England, a shrewd and ambitious monarch, seized this opportunity to extend his influence over Scotland. Edward sought to install a compliant ruler, and in 1292, he succeeded in placing John Balliol on the Scottish throne. Balliol, however, was little more than a puppet king, subservient to Edward's demands. This move further destabilized Scotland, as Balliol's weak leadership and English interference incited resentment among the Scottish nobility and populace alike. The stage was set for rebellion, as the Scots yearned for a leader who could restore their independence and pride. During this period of crisis, Wallace's rise began to gain momentum. The Scottish nobles were deeply divided, often torn between their own ambitions and the oppressive demands of Edward I. This disunity weakened any concerted effort to resist English dominance. However, amidst this fragmentation, Wallace emerged as a unifying force, capable of bridging the gaps between various factions. The common people of Scotland suffered greatly under English rule. Heavy taxation, arbitrary justice, and the presence of foreign troops fueled widespread discontent. Wallace's ability to navigate these treacherous waters, rallying both commoners and nobles to his cause, showcased his exceptional leadership and strategic acumen. His dedication to the cause of Scottish independence resonated with those who had grown weary of oppression and yearned for freedom. Wallace's early actions, such as the attack on the Sheriff of Lanark, were bold statements against English tyranny. These acts of defiance quickly gained him a following among those who saw in him a glimmer of hope. Wallace's charisma and unwavering commitment to the Scottish cause made him a natural leader, capable of inspiring loyalty and courage in his followers. As the rebellion gained traction, Wallace's influence continued to grow. He demonstrated an uncanny ability to unite disparate groups, leveraging their collective strength against a common enemy. This period of turmoil, rather than crushing the Scottish spirit, provided the fertile ground needed for Wallace's rise. His leadership transformed disorganized resistance into a coherent movement with a clear objective: the liberation of Scotland from English rule. Wallace's exceptional strategic acumen was evident in his ability to adapt to the changing dynamics of the conflict. He understood that the key to successful resistance lay in exploiting English weaknesses and maximizing Scottish strengths. His guerrilla tactics, knowledge of the terrain, and ability to mobilize local support were instrumental in his early successes. Wallace's rise during this period of crisis was not just a personal triumph, but a beacon of hope for a beleaguered nation. In the midst of Scotland's darkest hour, Wallace emerged as a symbol of resistance and resilience. His ability to turn crisis into opportunity, rallying a divided nation against a powerful adversary, solidified his place in history. The turmoil of the late 13th century, rather than breaking Scotland, forged the conditions necessary for Wallace's rise and the eventual fight for Scottish independence. Defiance and battles, military tactics, and triumphs. One of Wallace's most significant military achievements was the Battle of Stirling Bridge in September 1297. This battle stands as a testament to Wallace's ingenuity and strategic brilliance. Faced with a larger and better-equipped English force, Wallace employed guerrilla tactics that leveraged the terrain to his advantage. The narrowness of Stirling Bridge was a crucial element in his plan. By forcing the English to cross in small numbers, Wallace ensured they could not bring their full strength to bear. The English, confident in their numerical superiority, were ill-prepared for Wallace's tactics. As the English soldiers began to cross the bridge, Wallace and his men launched a ferocious attack. The confined space of the bridge meant that the English could not effectively maneuver or retreat. The result was a devastating defeat for the English, with many soldiers either killed or forced into the river to drown. This victory was not just a tactical triumph, but a profound psychological boost for the Scottish cause. For the first time, a Scottish force had decisively defeated a much larger English army. The news of this victory spread quickly, invigorating the Scottish resistance and demoralizing the English. Wallace's understanding of the terrain and his ability to inspire his troops were pivotal in this success. Wallace demonstrated that with cunning and courage, even a smaller force could overcome a powerful adversary. His use of guerrilla tactics, including ambushes and hit-and-run attacks, was revolutionary at the time. These tactics maximized the strengths of his forces while exploiting the weaknesses of the English. Wallace's success at Stirling Bridge was a clear indication that the Scottish resistance was not only resilient, but also capable of sophisticated military strategy. The Battle of Stirling Bridge also marked Wallace as a leader of exceptional military prowess. His ability to motivate his troops and maintain their morale under dire circumstances was crucial. Wallace's leadership style was hands-on. He fought alongside his men, sharing in their hardships and victories. This fostered a strong sense of loyalty and camaraderie among his followers, further strengthening the Scottish cause. Following the victory at Stirling Bridge, Wallace was knighted and appointed Guardian of Scotland. This position allowed him to further organize the resistance and plan future campaigns. Wallace's influence continued to grow, and he began to attract more supporters, both from within Scotland and from sympathetic allies abroad. His reputation as a military leader was firmly established, and he became a symbol of defiance against English tyranny. The triumph at Stirling Bridge was a turning point in the Scottish Wars of Independence. It demonstrated that the Scots could challenge English dominance and win. Wallace's innovative tactics and inspirational leadership were key factors in this victory. The battle also had a lasting impact on medieval warfare, showcasing the effectiveness of guerrilla tactics against traditional armies. Wallace's legacy as a military strategist and national hero was cemented through his achievements on the battlefield. Ruthless revenge. Savage campaigns. Wallace's campaigns against the English were marked by a ruthless pragmatism. After the victory at Stirling Bridge, Wallace did not rest. Instead, he took the fight into northern England, aiming to bring the war to English soil. These raids were characterized by their ferocity and brutality, reflecting the harsh realities of medieval warfare. Wallace's forces targeted monasteries and villages, burning them to the ground. These actions were designed to disrupt English supply lines and instill fear among the English populace. Wallace understood that terror was a powerful weapon, capable of weakening the enemy's resolve and reducing their ability to sustain military campaigns. The burning of monasteries and slaughter of civilians were common tactics in medieval warfare. Such actions, while brutal, were seen as necessary to achieve strategic objectives. By attacking these targets, Wallace aimed to cut off the resources and support that the English needed to maintain their occupation of Scotland. These ruthless campaigns were a double-edged sword. On one hand, they galvanized Scottish resistance. The Scots, witnessing Wallace's determination and the impact of his raids, were inspired to join the cause. Wallace's actions demonstrated that the English were not invincible and that their oppression could be challenged effectively. On the other hand, Wallace's ruthlessness also hardened English resolve. The brutality of his campaigns angered the English crown and military leaders, who were determined to crush the Scottish rebellion. Wallace's tactics, while effective in the short term, provoked a fierce and unrelenting response from Edward I and his forces. Understanding Wallace's actions in their historical context reveals the harsh realities of medieval conflict. Warfare in this period was often brutal and unforgiving. Leaders like Wallace had to make difficult decisions, balancing the need for strategic victories with the moral implications of their actions. The raids into northern England were not just about causing destruction. They were also a psychological strategy. By bringing the horrors of war to English soil, Wallace aimed to force the English to reconsider their occupation of Scotland. This psychological warfare was intended to make the cost of the conflict too high for the English to bear. Wallace's campaigns reflected the desperate measures required in the fight for independence. The Scots were fighting for their survival and freedom, and Wallace believed that any means necessary were justified in this struggle. His actions were a reflection of the extreme circumstances and the fierce determination of a people unwilling to submit to foreign rule. In examining these savage campaigns, we see a leader who was both a hero and a product of his time. Wallace's ruthlessness was driven by a deep commitment to his cause and a pragmatic understanding of what was needed to achieve victory. His legacy is complex, encompassing both the inspirational and the brutal aspects of his fight for Scottish independence. Political struggles, diplomacy, and betrayal. Wallace's later years were characterized by intense political maneuvering and profound betrayal. After his appointment as Guardian of Scotland in 1297, Wallace's role expanded from military leader to statesman. He sought to gain international support for the Scottish cause, understanding that alliances were crucial for sustaining their fight against the English. In 1299, Wallace traveled to France, seeking the aid of King Philip IV. He hoped to secure a formal alliance and military assistance, recognizing that external support could turn the tide in Scotland's favor. While in France, Wallace also appealed to Pope Boniface VIII, seeking his intervention in the conflict. These diplomatic efforts highlighted Wallace's strategic vision and his ability to engage in the complex world of medieval politics. However, Wallace's political efforts were continually undermined by internal divisions among the Scottish nobility. The Scottish leaders were often more interested in their own power and influence than in a unified resistance against the English. These divisions weakened the Scottish cause and made it difficult for Wallace to maintain a coherent strategy. The lack of unity among the Scottish nobles was a significant obstacle to achieving lasting independence. The betrayal of Wallace by his own countrymen in 1305 was a poignant example of the complexities and harsh realities of medieval politics. Wallace was captured near Glasgow by Sir John Menteith, a fellow Scot. This act of betrayal underscores the tenuous nature of alliances and the personal ambitions that often overshadowed collective goals. Menteith's decision to hand Wallace over to the English was driven by political expediency and personal gain. Wallace's capture was a devastating blow to the Scottish resistance. It illustrated the fragility of their struggle and the internal conflicts that constantly threatened to derail their efforts. Despite these setbacks, Wallace remained unwavering in his commitment to Scottish independence. His resilience and dedication continued to inspire his followers and keep the spirit of resistance alive. The complexities of Wallace's political struggles reflect the broader challenges faced by Scotland during this turbulent period. The interplay of diplomacy, betrayal, and internal conflict was a constant backdrop to their fight for freedom. Wallace's ability to navigate these challenges, despite the ultimate betrayal, speaks to his extraordinary leadership and vision. In his final days, Wallace remained defiant. Even in captivity, he refused to acknowledge Edward the Firn as his sovereign and stood by his principles until the very end. His unwavering stance, even in the face of death, solidified his status as a martyr for the Scottish cause. Wallace's execution was a grim testament to his enduring commitment and the high price he paid for his country's freedom. Wallace's legacy as a national hero and symbol of resistance was forged in these later years. His political struggles and ultimate betrayal highlight the complexities of medieval politics and the challenges of uniting a divided nation. Despite these obstacles, Wallace's unwavering dedication to Scottish independence remains a powerful and enduring symbol of the fight for freedom. Execution and legacy, a hero's end and eternal symbol. William Wallace's execution on August 23, 1305, was gruesome. Arrested and taken to London, he faced a trial that was more of a formality than a genuine legal proceeding. Condemned as a traitor to the English crown, Wallace was sentenced to a brutal and agonizing death. He was hanged, drawn, and quartered, a punishment designed to be as painful and humiliating as possible. The English authorities intended Wallace's execution to serve as a grim warning to others who might defy Edward I's rule. His body was mutilated, and parts of it were sent to different cities across England as a stark reminder of the consequences of rebellion. However, this horrific end did not achieve the intended effect of quelling the Scottish spirit. Instead, it had the opposite impact, immortalizing Wallace as a martyr for the cause of freedom. Rather than being cowed by Wallace's death, the Scottish people were galvanized. His execution solidified his status as a national hero and a symbol of resistance against tyranny. Wallace's unwavering dedication and ultimate sacrifice for Scottish independence resonated deeply with his compatriots, strengthening their resolve to continue the fight. Wallace's legacy continued to inspire subsequent generations. Leaders like Robert the Bruce, who had initially been ambivalent, were motivated by Wallace's example. In 1314, Robert the Bruce achieved a decisive victory at the Battle of Bannockburn, securing Scotland's independence. This triumph was in many ways a fulfillment of Wallace's enduring dream, a testament to the lasting impact of his struggle and sacrifice. The story of William Wallace is a powerful testament to the enduring power of the human spirit in the face of oppression. His life and death embody the relentless pursuit of justice and the indomitable will to resist tyranny. Wallace's legacy extends beyond the borders of Scotland, symbolizing the universal fight for freedom and self-determination. Wallace's story has been told and retold through the centuries, each generation finding inspiration in his courage and resilience. His life is a reminder that true heroism lies not in the absence of fear, but in the willingness to stand up for what is right, regardless of the consequences. Wallace's enduring legacy is a beacon of hope for all who strive for a better, freer world. Today, Wallace's memory is preserved in numerous monuments and cultural references throughout Scotland and beyond. His life has been immortalized in literature, film, and folklore, ensuring that his legacy endures. The lessons of his life continue to be relevant, reminding us of the importance of courage, integrity, and the relentless pursuit of justice. Wallace's execution was intended to erase his influence, but it instead enshrined him as a timeless symbol of resistance. His story transcends time, teaching us about the power of standing up against oppression and fighting for one's beliefs. The legacy of William Wallace is a powerful reminder of the impact one individual can have in the quest for freedom and justice. As we reflect on the life and legacy of William Wallace, we see a man who rose from obscurity to become a beacon of hope and defiance for his people. His story is a powerful reminder of the impact one individual can have in the fight for justice and freedom. What lessons can we draw from Wallace's unyielding commitment to his cause? How can we apply his relentless pursuit of independence to our own struggles today? Share your thoughts in the comments, and let's continue this discussion. Imagine facing the kind of oppression and challenges Wallace encountered. How would you respond? Are there battles in your own life where you can channel Wallace's courage and determination? Let his story inspire you to stand firm in your beliefs and to fight for the change you wish to see. The power to make a difference is within each of us, just as it was within Wallace. If you found Wallace's journey inspiring, there's so much more to explore about the rich tapestry of history. Consider diving into the entire history of the United Kingdom, a story filled with intrigue, power struggles, and remarkable transformations. Our recommended video on the entire history of the UK, which will be appearing on the screen shortly, offers a comprehensive look into the events that have shaped the nation. We hope this deep dive into William Wallace's life has inspired and informed you. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe to our channel for more historical explorations and stories that bring the past to life. Your engagement helps us grow and bring you more content, so leave a comment with your thoughts and ideas for future videos. We love hearing from our community. Additionally, if you're able and interested, consider supporting our work through donations. Your contributions enable us to continue researching and producing high-quality content that educates and inspires. Thank you for watching, and stay tuned for more fascinating histories. 2 other videos will be on the screen as recommendations to further enrich your understanding of history. Dive in, explore, and let the past illuminate your present and future.